things got hectic and for some reason the water supply was limited, or they were rationing water, or they shut it off. Well, where I'm at, man, I'm ready to roll. So this is like off the grid but still on the grid, and so I'm really looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say today. And so, folks, this is a pleasant surprise. I've got Eric Hecker with us and BurnEye, the Alchemist. He's really happy, and it's weekend at BurnEye's. And so, yes, I mean, Eric, I don't know. I'm looking forward to hearing what you're going to bring to the table, man. Because every time we talk, you're like next level. And I've heard a lot of stuff in Antarctica, but you seem to have such a wide spectrum of topics that we could discuss anything, and I'm sure you'd be able to keep up.
Oh yeah, I'm game. I'm looking forward to it, Rex. Chomping at the bit. We've had this one on the back burner for a while, so I'm happy to join in.
Exactly.
Well, it's so great to have you guys, and I'm going to be kind of in the background here right now. So this is your show, and I'll be checking in every now and then. But thank you so much for what you guys do. Thank you for speaking here on the Leak Project Network and keeping the change you guys want to see.
Thank you, Rex. Same with
you, brother.
Rex. Absolutely. So I've got a few different things to go over today with both the medicine hat geoglyphs. We'll do some pyramid talking and also go through your different experiences down in Antarctica and what you've made of it since. Good, Eric. I'll let you take over here and just talk for a few minutes, Eric, if you want to introduce yourself, although most people here are probably pretty familiar with you if you've been on a few times, but I'm just going to get ready here. So if you don't mind taking the lead for 5 or 10 minutes, I'll just be listening in the background, but I will be right here.
Oh, no worries. And it ain't going to take me 5 or 10 minutes, but I'm happy to chime in. Basically, it's, my name's Eric Hecker, and I'm currently living up in Anchorage, Alaska. I have my own website, deciphering.tv, where I'm trying to get into disclosure by sharing my experiences, what I've come across, and what I know to be true. So I have gone all the way from Levittown, Long Island, which is a peculiar town in the history of our country in and of itself, and peculiar programs in the greater Long Island area. I've also had experiences in Antarctica. I spent a year straight at the South Pole Station. I learned that there are technologies on this planet that are pretty much really beyond most people's comprehension, and I'm trying to bring them into the fold. I thought that it was going to be a much easier mission, that the information that I had could be dropped on the table and everybody would digest it and go, oh, now we all know. But in reality, it seems like it's a lot more challenging to do that. So that's basically where I am at in the state of disclosure, is just trying to really, I guess, repump the information that I've presented previously, that the South Pole Station is like this wild mind control / intergalactic communications system that is not being wielded by nice folks. And we, the people of the planet, need to know something and do something about this, because we're currently suffering really badly under technologies that people don't even know exist. And that's the part that's going to, it's really hard cognitive dissonance, because nobody wants to hear me when I say, hey, have you really truly considered that the decisions that you've been making in the past few years have been manipulated by some sort of outside technology? Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to believe it. Nobody wants to give any credence to it, because the responsibility to that understanding means that everybody needs to really get off their butts fast and furiously and get their lives back, take control of everything. Like this is where I say, know thyself is so important, because there's technologies that are intruding on that. And if people don't pay attention, they're never going to know. So that's kind of where I'm trying to be the crack in the dam of this concrete veil of secrecy on these technologies they're up and running.
Right. And so Mark Twain's famous quote of "it's easier to lie to people than convince them that they've been lied to." And I Feel you on that, brother, and it's such a noble cause. So I will let you continue on with some of what you've discovered while you were down there and your research since.
I got
Oh,
to real quick. I want to jump in because I'm hearing you talk about this, Eric, and I'm fascinated with the mind control technologies. And I've been studying it now for about 15 years. And there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation about HARP technologies. What I do know is, though, many years ago, back in 2013, I went to Alaska. Before I flew out to Alaska, I used to go on these forums all the time on Godlike Productions that have video chat where people could just, shoot the shit. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go check out HARP when I go to Alaska. And dude, we got followed by homeless guys. They looked homeless. Obviously they weren't, but they were dressed like they were homeless. We got followed by those dudes when we left Anchorage. And I think that they were following us to see if we were actually going to go to HARP. So I can't even imagine the technologies they're going to have out there in on the South Pole. It could be even more powerful than HARP, especially considering the location. But, we talked before when you brought up the possibility that it was a communication device, like interstellar communication device. And I think it'd be a great to kind of get people up to par with that if they missed that show. That's incredible.
Yeah. First and foremost, Rex, I can back up your experience with going up over to HARP. I've been there twice myself. It's just a drive for me as a resident. It's a long drive, but it's just a drive. I've done it twice and investigated the area. And both times that I was in the area looking around, I felt like there were eyes on me. There were folks that made contact with me that had, oh, I'm retired DOD and blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay, 10-4. And you just happen to be in the middle of nowhere right next to me in the middle of nowhere.
That's kind of bizarre.
Yeah, it's,
what a coincidence.
Yeah, right. I mean, in and of itself, it doesn't prove anything, but boy, it's certainly peculiar when it's happening.
Do they still follow you around, man? Do you have a lot of weird stuff happen out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I had an extremely weird interaction today driving. I was at a red light. And all of a sudden the dude behind me starts honking. And I'm going, this is interesting. The light's not green. Like, what's this guy rushing me for? This is peculiar. Someone's trying to get a rise out of me, I figured. All of a sudden, the dude just exits his vehicle, starts coming up towards me. The light turns green now. All the vehicles in front of me go. All the cars on the side go. Everyone's leaving this intersection. And the guy starts saying to me, he goes, hey, when are you going to sell that van? I said, never. He goes, well, how many miles to the gallon do you get? And I said, plenty. And he starts asking me, I said, sorry, I have to go. The light's green. And I just drove away.
After honking at you nonetheless, eh?
Yeah, I mean, this guy's just interested in my van out of nowhere. This was also, I was exiting my home and had just turned the GPS tracker off on my phone.
Okay, so you turn your GPS tracker off, and that's when that happens. That's weird.
It was within 3 minutes of that.
See, because before it didn't sound that weird. Before it just sounded like some agitated dude that was like, maybe he wanted to buy your van, or maybe he didn't. Maybe he wanted to punch you in the face. Who knows? But now that you're saying the GPS got turned off, and then that happens, that adds a whole layer of spook right there.
There are layers, yeah.
And then that he was honking while the light was red, but then tries to engage you once it's green. That's even more strange.
And as if my van is so highly desirable that, a contact in traffic is required.
They wanted to see if anybody was with you, what you're doing, maybe.
Oh, there's a high probability it was just a contact. Yeah, just a quick peek.
Like, look in there. Oh, he's okay.
Yep. Is that him?
Right now.
Yeah, and it's, there's weird contacts that happen in other circumstances. Lots of folks don't know that vehicles listed for utilities, like the power company, the cable company, and stuff like that. Lots of times those vehicles are like cops or feds or something. The agencies have deals where they have certain aspects of the fleet that are already set aside. They're just put in a different parking lot corner, and they're for the feds to use. And they can just dip into any one of these cars, and next thing you know, you think it's the cable guy that you're talking to, but it's really a Fed that's trying to get info from you that you're willing to give away because you see the car in the uniform, so you presume.
Hey, it's the cable guy. Let's talk to him.
Yeah, cable guy's walking up and down the block with a scanner thingy and just makes contact and gets info, and you give up free info.
And in Alaska, that's the peculiar part.
Oh, well, yeah, there's always, yeah. There's a lot of, that's, well, another weird thing up here too is the percentage of the population that basically was federal on, like, you know, a lot of the population here is just endeared to the federal government.
I mean, they're working for the feds in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, or a pension from.
Yeah, that will sway the loyalty for sure, right?
Heck yeah.
So a little bit more about the mind control aspects, because like there's been so much classified research out of the South Pole over the years, and that like they're able to essentially magnify, amplify different waves through the pole. Like I remember that there was a study in the 60s or something about the South Pole possibly having these vortexes over top of them, speculation that there's like an inner Earth access down there. Can you give us any sort of insights of anything along those lines you experienced while down there, Eric?
I didn't really experience anything in that capacity about the energies. Well, I guess that's not really accurate. I did experience the energies of the South Pole. I saw some of the coolest aurora australis possible. So that's the energies of the South Pole in full effect, actually. So that's actually one of the things that I consider. Like you are more of a scientist in this direction and do more practical studies and things, right? I believe that there actually has to be some, I don't know, something measurable from someone who's been at the South Pole. I mean, like, there's different energies on this planet. There's the North Pole and there's the South Pole. And there's a magnetosphere. And most people are at certain positions on the planet for certain periods of time. And I equate that to like going to a different community and drinking of their well. Would be like partaking of the energy of that area.
I like what you're saying with that, and especially with the amount of instruments that NASA has down there of measuring these different electromagnetic waves and energies and stuff like that. And that would specifically tie into mind control, like the influence of it and that technology of these EM waves. So absolutely, anything that experience that you have from down there that you might not have thought of at that time, but that could reflect onto as something that might have been different from, for instance, how you feel in Alaska, which is close to the North Pole, or when you were living in the continental US, in like the Central Range, I guess.
Ooh, that's challenging to say anything similar because South Pole was so extremely different. It's the lack of everything, and I don't know that people can really imagine that nowadays because they have so much at their fingertips. I mean, it's a year of nothing. I mean, literally take away everything that you enjoy doing and remove it, basically, like, and then like lock yourself in the room, throw away the key, and make it 100 below 0 degrees outside for 1,000 miles in every direction. I mean, there wasn't anything else quite similar to that per se. But in regards to the mind control stuff and the experience and what I think about differently from then until now is I do believe that our winter site manager, and this is all referenceable on the news if anybody wants to pull stuff up, my winter site manager contacted, her name was Renee Nicole Dusseur, and she contacted the news. She was trying to get medically evacuated in the middle of our winter season, which is not possible. She, I believe, suffered something I believe she believes she suffered something, and she tried to figure out what it was and thought she had a stroke. So she was hurt. I get that. When somebody's hurt and they're scared, they do what they can to try to save themselves. So she was trying to get medically evac'd in a circumstance where it wasn't happening. It made all of the news. South Pole scientist tries, needs help. It was 2011 that it occurred. And I think it was a directed energy weapon attack or some sort of mind weapon. I believe our facility was doing offensive work, and I believe that she was suffering the symptoms of people firing back at us, basically.
So that's actually not necessarily that far fetched of an idea in reference to, compared to in Cuba there, those energy attacks that were going on the embassies and stuff like that, and that those sort of things would quite possibly be amplified down in the pole with the energies there. So yeah, and especially if you're saying it's a covert base, maybe not necessarily the specific building that you're in or something, but something in that area that another power of that sort of
the antenna
technology in games would then retaliate.
The antenna array, the phased array transmitter officially was kilometers in dimension, in 3 dimensions, kilometer by kilometer by 2 miles high. Thing's huge.
That's an insane amount of energy that when radiation would even be coming off of that.
Right. So even there's an issue with us being in proximity to this device that we were manipulating. So there's issues to be asked about that first and foremost. How does it impact the personnel in proximity? I don't have the answers. They're just questions. I know it negatively impacted members of my crew. We've been in contact. This is part of why I disclose, is because I know what happened to my crew. We now also know that Havana-like syndromes were present for our crew. They just didn't have terms for it then. We've been trying to figure it out. I know that the technology is there.
2011, and then Savannah syndrome started coming out in 2016 or 2018 or something like that. So
correct.
At least 5 years after.
And they were discussing how it was DoD personnel and associated foreign agent type things, and South Pole Station and the United States Antarctic program in its entirety, I think would fit that bill. Especially with the consideration that our season, so 2010, 2011, when I was there, was when we went from construction to operations and maintenance on the IceCube neutrino detector, which is also the phased array transmitter. So it was literally the season that they were firing up the gun, when they were dialing it in. So I think in the process of us dialing it in and discharging, that there were other entities that were basically returning fire, that it was just game on. That's what this stuff is for.
And as always, then civilians just left in the crossfire.
Yeah, civilians that were hired by Raytheon.
So were you actually, who was your contractor, if you don't mind? And also, can you pull up a picture maybe as reference for the viewers of the antenna array down there, or some of them? And sorry, Eric, I just need 3 minutes if you don't mind filling the
No worries.
I'll be right back.
What was the first question?
A picture of
I thought you asked something before that. I don't know if I have anything handy, but I thought you asked something before that.
I did. Now I'm trying to think.
You did ask something before that. Dang it. I could probably find something, but I'm not that expeditious on getting it over to that screen for you. Let's see here.
How bad did it get for you guys out there? As far as what could be some type of Havana syndrome type effects?
Oh, well, to the point that our winter site manager was calling for a medical evac. That literally speaks volumes. I'll clarify for folks that don't realize this. This was the head of the station. This was the winter site manager, and of anybody in that facility that knows there is no chance of a medical evac. It's her. She's supposed to be the one that's calming anyone else down if they feel that they can get an evac. Every one of us signed a contract stating clearly that this is a one-way ticket. If anything goes wrong before standard operations, you're on your own. You got to figure it out. Everyone knew this. They were very clear about it. And that's just even if they wanted to. There was no desire. Then we're getting into the reality of the logistics. We had 2 airdrops when I was in Antarctica. And that in and of itself was a logistical nightmare, and a large fortune had to be paid out just so that we could have one of our crew members get some medication that was going to be life-saving. So that was the extent of what we already knew was our lifeline in logistics. Nobody had any expectation of anything greater than that. And that had already been pushed to its limits for our crew. So in a certain aspect, as much as I don't care for Raytheon as a corporation, the United States Antarctic program did not leave us high and dry when things would get squirrely at the pole. Well, even with that being said, this winter site manager knew all of that and was apparently, I would just simply say, injured enough that she was scared enough for her own life that she was doing what she thought was in her best interest at the moment. And she was being unreasonable by asking for unreasonable things. But I get it. You know, she's a hurt animal at that point, would be my perspective. And I would, in hindsight now, I don't think she had a stroke in the slightest. I think she was just trying to identify what her symptoms were to something. And we now see this list is very similar to what is the Havana syndrome symptoms. And it's just unfortunate that I'll speak publicly on her account because she's someone who went public on her experiences. And I will just state that I've spoken to other members of the crew who have had other similar symptom lists to Havana syndrome, myself included. So we're just trying to figure out what's going on down there because we know the technology exists, we've experienced it firsthand, and we know it's being used on everybody else. We're just the first ones hit, that's all. First ones to become aware, but we're not the only ones. We're not special. This stuff's being used on everybody. We need to all collectively start understanding the technology and the potentials. This is not a single item. These are multifaceted weapons. They do a multitude of things. People need to get over this idea of like a rifle or a pistol, like this one shot, one kill. You have to be near someone to hurt someone. You have to be able to see your enemy to have an enemy. This is the whole modern battlefield has changed. Nobody has any idea that we are currently in the throes of war. They don't know they have an enemy because the enemy hasn't presented itself. Very convenient for them. So therefore, nobody has any idea where the front line is.
That is very well said right now, and especially with the misdirection in the media, and that even the Pope is saying essentially the world has entered a stage of World War III. Yet they don't want you looking at it, and most likely the enemy is one from at home that is, you know, misdirecting and misallocating and misusing their power, the resources, and trying to incite further conflicts across this realm. I remember my question now. It was, who was your contractor down there?
And that's right.
A 2 parts, essentially, whereabouts, where the base you were located, and did you see any see or hear any unusualness when it came to actual expeditions around the South Pole itself? Like apparently there's a no-fly zone over the actual pole or something like that, and like, and I guess maybe just your opinion on, for instance, Linda Moulton Howe's stories of like right at the pole there being these antediluvian pyramids and excavation sites. Did you get any sort of wind or feeling like that, or not? Just something you can't speculate on?
I worked for Raytheon Polar Services, which was a subsidiary of Raytheon. They're now defunct since they no longer have the contract. Now Lockheed Martin has the contract. That was the first part. The rest was peculiar treks or anything like that.
Stories or like
Yep.
If it seemed like you weren't allowed or nobody's allowed around the South Pole itself, or if there's any sort of like hidden suppressed archaeology digs or activities and stuff around there from what you sensed or heard.
Well, we were tasked with blowing up the old pole in my summer season 2010, and they didn't want anybody going in there anymore. So that hits the nail right on the head. So the facility that was built in 1957 had been pretty much like taken over by the ice, but there was like you could still get down in there, and they didn't want people going down in there, so they blew it up.
Really? So just you'd think at a location that is so isolated and essentially like human resource scarce, if something went wrong, that they would want a backup sort of like shelter or buildings, whatever resources would be there. But you're saying that in fact you were actually tasked with doing the exact opposite and destroying the former structures that were there.
That's correct.
Wow. See, like that just does not make logical sense from the official storyline point of view.
I don't buy that story as presented. Do
you want to give us a few reasons as to like why, like your personal feelings and your suspicions, I guess, of it?
I think there's absolutely something still down there that they don't want people figuring out how to get to, and they had to make it more complex. I think there's still some way of accessing something over there. I believe that, there's a lot to be said for peculiar things going on at South Pole that I can't prove. But boy, was there a lot of weird stuff going on around me. Like one of the weirdest things that, in the grand scheme of all kooky, crazy, blah, 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 let's just go right for it. Like the possibility of the South Pole Station being like an intergalactic spaceport actually kind of makes sense, because with all the extreme cold weather gear on, everyone's covered head to toe, and it makes total sense there.
That's actually also
everybody's walking around weird because of the clothing and the ice. So in a way, it actually, like in hindsight, you're like,
It would be very easy to misidentify people or non-people.
Cover them up. Yeah, cover them up, and yeah, just,
Because like there's these stories, like both like from starting with Operation High Jump after World War II, Admiral Byrd's stories, the supposed diary of his supposed travels into inner Earth and whatnot, and then being locked in a kooky institute afterwards and never being able to tell his story officially. And then the fact that we had like John Kerry and Buzz Aldrin and all the rest of these people get rushed down there. Were you around during those times, or do you have any suspicions on that aspect of it?
I was there before they were, actually. I was there before Buzz Aldrin.
Nice.
Yeah, and they actually had to evac him too, so I got that going for me as well. But I think it's extremely weird that the leaders of the world go down there. I really do. I think that is beyond extreme.
Like,
These
yeah,
are
exactly.
elite people that are put in cushy ivory towers their whole life.
Exactly. So, like,
This
if
is
you
a
can
real
elaborate on
threatening
this a little
environment.
bit more. So, like, from your personal experience working down there, it's harsh environments. And it's like you wouldn't see a rational reason for these people that are pampered, living the high life, cushy stuff to all of a sudden have this desire or purpose to go down there from what the official reason is.
Right.
Is that correct?
The logistics lines are stretched to non-existent in Antarctica, especially going to South Pole Station, which is where I was at. You asked that earlier. I was at the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station, the actual South Pole. So there's nothing, right? If you're flying there, you're going over the Transantarctic Mountains, your plane breaks and you go down. Guess what? That's it. You're over. You're done. It doesn't matter if you're John Kerry. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So that's why I say it's wild that these people are going to this place, because they don't normally take on this level of risk or liability. They're too insulated and protected in so many facets of their life that this, to me, seems like someone's getting punished.
Right? Exactly. Like, it's like that's not something that would be like that you could brag about, or that like you would want to do, or that would seem that would have any rational importance if all that's down there is just a continent of a giant iceberg. Like it's
I follow that. I
harsh.
can't find.
Like, it's easy to die. There's easy to accidents. So many things could go wrong. Like, why would they be taking the risk of it?
There's no practical point in them being there. That's what I don't see in the slightest. Because like me, I can say, all right, I'm there to fix anything that breaks. There's a reason for me to be there. Oh, and they're paying me to do it. Okay, there's a reason for me to be there. But there's no reason to pay for him. Whatever he does, they don't need to pay him to do it there.
Right? Like,
or do they? Which would be really weird.
John Kerry, like diplomat. Well, like that brings up, why would one of the highest diplomats at that time, it was right during the election too, why would a diplomat be sent to a place that supposedly has nothing unless it was of the highest importance?
Yeah, like, and I'll add to this conversation then that we have John Warner III, who was previously the Secretary of Defense, passed away within the last year. Prior to him passing away, he stated to his son that the United States Submarine Service was actively involved with secret facilities underneath the ice in Antarctica, that there were steam boring tunnels and the such, and that this facility, or these facilities, I should say, were used for space operations, was what he was quoted as saying. So there's definitively stuff going on in outer space. I'm not even gonna begin to debate with folks whether or not they think there's like a massive amount of life in space. To me, that's a given. Just because we don't see it, I mean, come on, cut it out. As far as I'm concerned,
that way too. And you pretty much confirmed all of my suspicions from like my own research and intuition into the South Pole. And especially, have you ever heard of Nassim Haramein and his Resonance Foundation? Yeah.
Yes. A lot.
Exactly. I love Nassim and his work. And through his Schwarzschild proton paper and thesis, astrophysics, he essentially explains and believes that within each atom, but also within each planet and everything, there's a black hole within itself, and there's a portal essentially at the poles. And from other stuff, it's like if you spin a cylinder, a ball of water with just a little bit of air in it, if you rotate it really fast, the air, the bubble actually goes to the very center of the sphere and is hollow. So it adds more to the fact that there's this possibility of either there being like a space-time sort of vortice at these poles, or whether these legends, myths of a hollow earth or something like that. It's that there's some sort of portal access, off-world or in-world sort of situation out of Antarctica.
I I've read a bunch of stuff that has said that when NASA was trying to figure out how to get to the moon, that they were realizing that their gravity calculations were wrong. They were trying to do their stuff, and everything wasn't working right. And like, what the hell's going on? It was like, hey, you know what? We don't really understand gravity, apparently, is what they were learning. We think we do, but look what happens. We keep screwing it up. So then they just realized that what we can do, though, is we can do a workaround. We're gonna enter. Apparently, if we enter the moon's magnetosphere, gravity, whatever you want to call it, from the southern pole, our stuff works well enough. And it was a little detail that I noticed in all these other conversations about everything to do with the lunar project that just stuck out to me. And I was like, they were having trouble calculating gravity and South Pole, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I wonder if this works like on all planets. Like maybe it is just easier to enter and exit the magnetosphere of a spinning sphere from the southern pole.
You're bang onto it. And I believe it was an American NASA scientist that was like maybe it was late 50s, or it could have been 60s or early 70s, that came out with this big theory of studying. And yeah, he was like, I think it was like through the UN maybe, that NASA did this original 5 or 10 year study down in Antarctica, and then it was his findings, and then it was like, it came out, I think, either due to sunset clause or it was released by the Russians after the fall of the Soviet Union, one or the other. But I remember seeing it, and it talked about a lot in the UFO documentaries of the late 90s, early 2000s, that there was some sort of energy vortex out of the South Pole, and that NASA had been studying it to utilize to escape the gravity velocity of the Earth or something like that out of there. So just more supporting evidence to things that I've heard over the years.
Yeah, and they're definitely studying the magnetosphere down there. I mean, that's something they're paying attention to, and they were, checking stats on it daily. That
so
was part
you
of the science
yourself have
that they
been
shipped.
to the actual the actual South Pole itself.
Yep.
And that's so cool.
Yeah.
And then you said that they were covering up the former infrastructure, dig down, access to below.
Correct.
And
The original
one down there.
The original pole that was constructed in 1957 from the first winter over crew, which my crew, we actually got to have a conference call with them, which was also pretty amazing. Yeah, we got to, I don't know, it was the weirdest thing. We got to have a chat with them, I guess, because we were going to blow up their facility. It was like kind of weird. Like we had a conference room at the South Pole, and they gathered our crew in, and they brought us on with what they said were the survivors of the original facility. So now, even in hindsight, that was a weird conversation that we had.
And so were these survivors, they're actually at the South Pole, or was it video conference sort of thing?
It was a conference phone call. Wasn't even video. Yeah, there was not a lot of.
Oh my God, did they have these poor quote unquote survivors trapped down there the whole time?
No. But yeah, it was just a peculiar thing now in hindsight as well, that we even had that opportunity and that they even cared to make that happen.
Right? That is rather strange.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you mind maybe helping us visualize the sort of infrastructure that this first base was that you had to blow up, and then also what they have down there right now? Is it just a few tents, or are they actually, was there evidence of boring into the ice or the rock, and tunnel systems? How much sort of machinery, buildings, people, leftover infrastructure as well as new infrastructure for activity?
There was the original stuff was very rudimentary. It was almost like taking connexes or mill vans and just storage containers and stacking them and arranging them in a way to build a man camp in a way. there was an exceptionally long tunnel coming out of one side of that facility that went into the ice that I do not know why or where it went, that I'm still looking into. Which
That's
is, again,
fascinating. And
yeah.
like that was what was just going through my mind. Was there a tunnel? Because like you can have these like boxcar like little situations, but it's just a cover for a tunnel down into a much bigger complex, possibly. And you're saying
and I have
that
maps
there's
of this
actually
stuff.
Possibility of that there from what you personally saw.
And I have maps of this stuff. I have documentation. The things that I'm talking about, I'm proving. Right. This isn't me speculating. I mean, I put it that I do have speculations. Don't get me wrong, but there are times I'm speculating. There's times I'm like, hey, listen, this is a rock solid fact. Check it out. Boom. Here's a map. Here's a photograph. Here's whatever. But this whole, like you had even mentioned Linda Moulton Howe before, and you're like, well, what is your opinion on her and what she says about what's going on? Honestly, I think at this stage of the game, she's now a joke. It's starting to sound to me like other folks from the program that I was in, are messing with her.
Right.
They're having fun. There's people that do know some stuff.
Info, programs going out there, right? So it's like you're verifying that you've actually been down there, and it's like clearly, if you were at the South Pole itself, it's like you would have known or seen something to indicate an active giant dig below, but you have yourself seen a tunnel to something that could well be that there is definitely something down there, but just the info that she is being fed is most likely disinfo to then take away the credibility of whatever is actually
exactly there. Yep, correct. That's exactly what's going on, is that folks like her are gatekeepers. They might have been doing stuff good in the past. I'm not going to knock an entire person's career overnight. I'm not saying that everything's garbage. I'm just saying where this person's position right now is not practically helping the community.
And that she might not even be aware of it, right? She
may not.
She could be being played, and like
she's getting played is how I'm trying to look at it. I'm trying to play the nice guy. I think she's getting played. There are some really nutty folks in the Antarctic program, and it seems like some of the stuff that I'm seeing in the community might be that like it just got on the radar of the programs, and they don't care if these people aren't into the SSP and blah, blah, blah. It could just be fun, just like other trolls exist in other ways. What if there's folks that are from the Antarctic program that just want to mess with Linda Moulton Howe? How is she going to know better? What if anyone from the military, right? If anybody from the military, right, even like just say a disinformationist, right? Let's say someone from the government actually wants to slow my roll. So what, somebody shows up with a DD-214 and says, I was a Navy SEAL, so therefore I'm credible. So any story that I tell you must be true.
Exactly. And I thank you for being honest with this, because it's what needs to come out. And it's I kind of suspected that, and also how much it's like it seems that they've directed this disinfo at her and worked at it with her and like just built it up into this thing, because it's like there are these real pyramids down there. Like there's, on Google you can see it, like there's pictures of them and stuff like that.
I possess a photograph of a pyramid in Antarctica.
Can you show it?
I've shown it before on the internet. It looks terrible. It doesn't present well, and everybody goes, "That's not a pyramid." Yeah, because it doesn't. It wasn't meant to be presented this way.
Fair enough. We've all seen the pictures down there, and you're saying you yourself have experienced pyramids down there.
I have this photograph in my possession. I have taken this photograph with me to 2 events, 2 conferences. I've shown it to people like Brad Olson, an expert researcher in Antarctica. I've shown it to Laura Eisenhower, also an expert in the topics of the things that we're discussing. Both of them have seen it. Both of them have said, very awesome, good for you. Like, no one's arguing that this exists. It's just I'm trying to get this information out. I'm not saying there aren't UFOs. I'm not saying there aren't pyramids. I'm not saying there's not all this stuff. I'm just saying let's just have a conversation with the people that are really disclosing it, not the ones that have cool stories.
Yeah, or that's are being misled.
Dude, I gotta jump in here real quick, man. I gotta jump in. It's important, man. It's important. Okay. I got abducted by space aliens, and I saw 200 of them. I counted, and they all had 6-packs, and they told me all about their lives and what they did, and they told me about how long they were pregnant for. I interviewed a guy that said all this shit, right? And I said, "Oh, really? How long are they pregnant for?" 3 to 4 weeks. Yep, that's it. 3 to 4 weeks. And busted. Sorry, buddy. You know, I mean, come on, dude. First of all, the guy like he came on the show. I did the show because a friend asked me to. I was like, sure, I'll do it. But then the more I'm listening to this guy talk, I'm just, bullshit detector.
It happens. Yeah, it happens.
So many people in this field are full of shit.
You have to know more than anyone, Rex. The amount of shit that you probably have to sift through, I can't even begin to imagine, because at the lame low level that I'm at, I feel like it's already absurd, and it's almost palpable. Like I can see a direct amount of how much energy that I put out towards disclosure to that there's this immediate response of BS that comes back. It's so programmed in. And so it's like the more you try, the more it comes. And you are certainly way ahead of the curve on trying. So you must have shit getting slung at you like I've never seen.
Well, and it's okay. I mean, I'm used to it.
I got you.
It's made me.
But you know it. That's what I'm saying is it exists.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
The best BS detector out there from experience is what it is. Because you just had to walk through it for so long.
Well, here's the thing, man. When I started this 7 years ago on my journey, right? And I've always had a fascination with extraterrestrials because of what I saw when I was just a toddler. And I've said this story many times. And so I've always thought that there's extraterrestrials. And then the more I've interviewed people, especially when I was doing interviews back at the beginning, and I go back and I listen to them, some of these stories, you just have to like ask real questions. Like, and here's the thing, I've interviewed a lot of people that are totally legit too. Like so legit. So, I just, there's been those people that I've interviewed throughout the years that are spreading this disinformation, and they're getting their own shows on networks, and they're talking about how they went to Mars and came back and they were a fighter pilot in Mars. And it's like, oh, well, what'd you do out there? You're out there for 25 years. Can you tell me what
you don't have one picture from 25 years that right? It's like,
well, I mean, not only that, but they can't even really let's take that, put that to the side. Let's put the physical evidence to the side. If you're good at reading people, you can tell, unless somebody's like the best liar in the world, you're going to be able to pick up little subtle cues, right? Tonality, body language, eye movements and stuff like that. And then when it just compounds and compounds and compounds, you don't need to, that's even more. But if you get somebody that's literally been there and done that, they're going to give you a testimony that's going to blow your mind, right? They're going to convince you, because
you're going to read it through their body language as well as the words, right? And it's like you see the story through the person and the facial expressions and like the integrity of it. And it's so easy at this point to see those that are, well, I guess it's harder to see some trolls that are so passionate about their disinfo because it is their cause and their goal. But then it's like, there's the others that it's just like, that didn't happen.
Well, you've got those that want fame and think that's their moment of fame. You've got those that just like to stir the pot. You have those that are paid disinformation. And then you have people that are crazy. And then you have people that are just telling stories. I mean, there's a wide group of these people that tell this stuff. And in all reality, I would say probably the majority of the stories are testimonies and legit. If you take everybody, if you talk to people behind the scenes, and they'll tell you stuff that they're not going to talk about on TV or, on the internet, unless you can get them to do so. There's so many people that I have done that with, and they're legit. And there's so many people out there that talk about it and have written about it, and they're legit. But then you get those people out there that just make up stories. And so it is what it is. It's like everything else. I guess we just got to filter through it, right? It keeps us sharp.
It requires us to have discernment. That's never changed. You're right, Rex. So I think the problem in the equation is that reality has always been this way. We've always had charlatans and snake oil salesmen. That always existed. But what the society needs now is discernment again. Somehow we've had discernment programmed out of us.
And common sense.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You know, to think that the average person nowadays will pretty much admit that they're like, you know what? I'd rather watch a TV show that is more sensational and of high production value than it is accurate.
Yeah, that's a really good point on the discernment, and that it's like the control mechanisms of the media have specifically targeted humanity's ability for this discernment, because the matrix of the system, the people caught in that cog, it's so close to breaking down that they have to live in this cognitive dissonance that as soon as their discernment were to come back, that whole system, the whole matrix is going to crumble for them. And thus why things are so polarized now between those who get it, those who don't, and vice versa with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of everything nowadays is just for the express purpose of manufactured confusion. It's information overload and conflict galore. Oh, you said this? Well, I have a link that says the opposite of that. Oh, and I have 12 links now. And a meme. I have 12 memes that say you're an idiot to boot. You know, it's like we don't even have reasonable conversations anymore about stuff. You know? Everybody's like going to their smartphone 24/7, and they don't even realize that they sound like an idiot.
Well, and it's the AI is programmed to reinforce their confirmation bias in whatever their belief is by knowing what they look up,
Right.
and then providing them even more of it, so that it's just building that narrative within their reality.
Mm-hmm. People don't know anything anymore. It's the wildest situation. Like, they really don't. Like, what do we, like, has anybody else noticed that? Have you guys noticed that? That people don't know anything anymore? You ask somebody anything, they reach in their pocket and they start using their fingers to figure something out, because they certainly don't know anything anymore.
Drone behavior.
They won't speak with confidence to you unless they can have 6 links. Heaven forbid you question anything they said. You know, where's the humanity in this anymore?
Yeah.
Where is, hey, where's Honest Rex? Well, we call him Honest Rex because he's got a reputation of being honest, because we know him, because we talk to him, because he's a human being, and we don't have to check his links, and we don't have to check his references, because he's a man of conviction, and we've known him, and you take a guy for his word until proven otherwise. If you meet him as a stranger, you don't ask him for links. Like, in a way, we were more cordial and understanding and human, and that's being programmed out of us, as if what this absurdity we experience today is human interaction anymore.
That's such valid points, Eric. And it's the lockdowns. It was intentionally this, to disconnect us from each other, to destroy that human link, to then make it that we fear other humans, to fear that human interaction even, because, oh, you know, you're going to get sick from each other, as opposed to, no, human to human interaction is as healthy as it becomes. That's how you build communities. That's how you build lives. That's how you succeed, as opposed to fear each other, stay away, trust this system. This system will deliver for you. The drone will deliver for you. Don't you dare open that door and see another person face to face, yet alone talk to them. Yeah.
We were talking about mind control before in programming, right? I would say everybody is currently already completely mind controlled and programmed to respect the master in their pocket. When that thing beeps or dings or vibrates, they will respond. They'll do what the master says, and they're already slaves to this. They're completely enslaved already right now. You want to doubt that they're enslaved? Not only are they enslaved, they love the master, because try to take it away.
Right? Stockholm syndrome at its finest.
That's right. Tell everyone they can't have their cell phones. Watch them tear your head off.
Yeah, it's just
right. Start a campaign. No more cell phones. Ban cell phones. Cell phones banned. You're a horrible person if you use a cell phone. Watch how far that program goes. Even though it's the weapon of our demise.
You will be walking that plank in no time.
Yeah.
But it's that there's no moderation either anymore, right? Like the common sense is gone, the balance is gone. It's just everything has been pushed to such extremes. And so another question I have for you out there, because of your like, I've gotten to know you a little bit now, Eric. I think this is our fourth or maybe even fifth time talking both publicly and behind after podcasts and stuff. But so I take you as a very genuine individual, and I'm very fascinated by your actual experiences and travels down to the South Pole. And where I am, so, and now you're on the other extreme up in Alaska. And so where I am in Calgary, Alberta, it's not as far as Alaska, but it's still decently far north. And this time of year, we just passed the summer solstice, and the lightest, how bright it is here, it's like the sun sets at 11 p.m., it rises at 4 a.m. What is it like, almost 24-hour for you up in Alaska right now? And
I think we're like 20-ish.
20-ish? Okay. Yeah, because it's a little bit further away from the North Pole. And then second part question is, when you were at the South Pole specifically, how long were you at the pole itself for? And did you experience either the 24-hour darkness or lightness, or were you around for those times?
I spent 366 days on Antarctica on the ice. I spent about 12 hours in McMurdo when I was heading south to go to South Pole. And then I spent the entire other 365 days at South Pole. And then when I left Pole and got back to McMurdo again, I was out of there in 12 hours again. So the vast majority of my time on there was South Pole.
One
full year.
At that pole.
As we say there, I spent one day at the South Pole from a South Pole perspective.
It's
awesome. Celestial. It was one day. It took 365 days for the sun to do there what it does at your house in a day, 24 hours. And yes, I experienced 24 hours of sunlight. I experienced 24 hours of darkness. They were very extended periods of time. The 24 hours of sunlight is very harsh and hard on you. It burns your skin up. It melts the eyes out of your head. It is so bright. All the sun reflecting off of the ice, the crystals in the atmosphere, basically makes it like wherever the sun is in the atmosphere, from that position down, just spin straight down, all the way through the sky, hits the horizon, hits the ice in front of you, and then shoots across the ice right towards you. You have this, from your perspective, it's just this one thing, this bar that is all apparently of the same material of the sun. So it's like turning the sun up like 100 times. It seems like having that much more sun material in front of you is what it feels like and looks like.
I could not imagine that. Like, I get burnt up just springtime skiing on the glacier. It's like 2 hours out, my face is just burnt from the sun block reflecting off the ice. So down there, like, oh gosh.
People would get really, it's funny you say that, people would mess up. I mean, they're like, we were trained to do our gear and keep an eye on each other and stuff, but every now and then someone would mess up, and you would see that somebody was outside and they didn't have the underside of their neck covered. So it would be reflected light coming from the snow, and this area would be all burned completely underneath their chin and on their neck. And you'd be like, ooh, you know, you're like, yep, I didn't see that coming. Like,
right? Like, just, I can imagine like the burn blisters from that, like, just being like on a glacier a couple hours ski, like, oh man, and that's 24/7 for a little bit, right? Right now they used to be doing darkness down there.
Here's an odd little fascinating fact, so to say. So the South Pole Station is at the geographic South Pole, but that's on a 2-mile high glacier. So the facility is adrift on the glacier for all practical purposes, just up at 2 miles high. So that glacier is moving. It moves about 33 feet a year, and they remark the pole. So officially, from the day that I got there till the day that I left, the glacier had moved 33 feet. So I am a glacier surfer.
That 33 too. You moved 33 feet, 33 degree.
Yeah, it's always interesting where these numbers show up, but that's the number that they use there.
That's fascinating. So do you have any footage, or were you able to record any of the I want to say Aurora Borealis. I know it's Aurora Australis.
It's Aurora Australis down there.
Australis.
I was not able to get video of that. It is, how do I put it? It is a dark beyond compare. It is devoid of everything but just the massive distance starlight. And standard cameras don't really catch that. When you point them at the sky, it just looks dark. So the auroras, like you could get the light of the auroras, but it's so muted or washed out. You have to have cameras that you can play with everything to make effects so that you can even capture the aurora in reality. The second reality is that the photograph doesn't represent what you see. Yes, it's a photograph of an aurora. Is that what an aurora looks like when you're there? No, right? That's not what it looks like.
Justice. Never do it justice.
Not even close. Yeah, because they have to play with things to catch it, so it makes it not what it looks like in reality. So it's, I hate to tell you, folks, if you don't go there to see it, you don't never saw it.
But that, it's perplexing to me hearing you describe this, in the sense that logically you would think that if it's so dark that these lights, if they're right overhead, would be easier to capture, and then it brings questions of that energy. Is there a flux, or what? Why is it that it's so hard to catch it?
Understood. And yes, you are right. Great point. But I will be hard pressed to start figuring out all the peculiarities of South Pole and make them make sense. But I'll add.
Sure, right? And it's like, I'm not asking that just of you.
I got you. Yeah, great point.
Scientific questions.
Yeah,
yes. Like, this is great information you're bringing up, and
I wonder if it's similar to so like when I would go walk out on the ice, okay, and I'm going from building to building, when there's no wind, it can be so quiet. There's nothing there. I mean, the deafening of the deafness of it is just, it's wild, okay? You hear your blood circulating at those moments. It's so quiet.
Does it feel like the energy and like the sound is almost being like sucked off, or like?
Yes, that's exactly where I was going to go with it. It's like at that point, at those moments, it's like if I were to try to talk, and like it would be more exasperating. It would be more noticeably exasperating that you can almost feel your sound being muted immediately. So it's like you're trying to speak up and you realize you're trying to put more energy out to make what was a different or same volume, like you're getting a loss of function.
I get what you're saying, and see how I was able to predict that and sense that. Have you ever seen, I think they're called light columns. I don't think they're light spreads.
Yes, I totally have. Yes, yeah. I've seen them in Barrow, Alaska. Utqiagvik. Barrow, Alaska is the northernmost point in U.S. And I have seen those light columns, and they are one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
And it's like, it looks like they're being sucked up essentially. And so I've experienced them twice in like the crazy winters in here in Calgary, Alberta, and the Alberta plains. And I actually have my own pictures of them, of these giant columns of these lights, like way up in the middle of the air. And it's like, there's nothing between them and the light post, and like nothing up. And at those times, it also feels like all of the energy is just being sucked up. And
it feels muted. I think of it like muted, like everything's like dampened. There's like a, how do I think of it? Like an increase in atmospheric pressure. It feels
or
like there's like something pushing on everything in a way.
see,
Like
I felt like
pressing
it was
down.
sucking the exact opposite. Like it was almost sucking it all up-ish. But
it's hard. I can feel it's almost bidirectional. I feel like I almost feel like in a way that it's like there's like an increase of pressure, so that it presses down, but then the stuff that's down can
it goes up. Yeah, right.
It
Well,
pushes it like
one place is being pushed down, the other has to be pushed up, right? So it's
yeah,
like,
and therefore also even as you're feeling it there, the beams are pushing up. So you're like it's almost like simultaneous. Like you're feeling the pressure, but the beams are going up. So there is some sort of toroidal energy thing going on, probably.
That's so cool that you've had the same experience that I have with that, and it's weird when it's happening, and it's like everything's amplified, but like missing almost with energy.
I saw an aurora australis at the South Pole one time, which is probably the only other cooler thing in nature that I saw besides the light beams. But we were doing a task, so we have these arches that go into the ice for storage of stuff at the South Pole. Over the course of the season, the wind was accruing what they call snow cornices. So big eaves of snow were building up over where we have access doors. So we couldn't leave it there because it could fall down and crush someone and kill them. So we had to manually remove it. So it was set up as a task. Everybody went outside and we were working this task in the middle of winter outside of the South Pole Station. It was a beautifully crystal clear night sky. All of the amazing galaxies and star clusters are really beyond description. But in the middle of this task, all of a sudden, right above us, this giant dark green ring, aurora australis, formed and was
a ring.
It was whipping around. It had flow, and it was with speed. It was ripping around ahead of us, and we look up, and all of a sudden, it was like we would call it charging up. It was like on one side, it started getting all like crazy and all of a sudden you could see there was like more energy coming in from the one side. Like it was like filling up in a way, and the ring was getting like bigger and more fast and furious, and then it like stopped filling up and just did this fury thing. And then after doing that for a little bit, it would then discharge 180 degrees on the other side of the circle from where it entered, and it would like blow out, and then the circulating, undulating ring would like reduce down as the blowout went out, and then it would be like calm for a while, and then it would start charging up again and going through this whole process again. And we were doing this task, and finally at one point, I don't remember if it was me or someone else, but at some point we were just like, listen, let's just watch this. Like we just stopped the task. Everybody just put down everything that we were doing, and we just all laid down on the snow berms and stuff. We were just looking up, and we watched it do this for a while, and just cycling and charging up and furying out the back end, and it was awesome. It was the coolest thing I ever saw.
I'm jealous of that one. That is so cool. Actual ring of aurora borealis, like right again.
Yeah, that was the stuff that didn't make sense there just never seemed to end. Like one of the peculiarities that people don't understand is like something came up in the news recently where everybody's like, oh look, the record high temperature. Look, it was recorded that it was 70 degrees hotter in this area on this day in Antarctica. As if that's huge news. Like straight up, like as if that's huge news. Oh, so this one spot on this one day just so happened to be not as cold because a storm blew in? You're going to leave that part out? So a storm blew into Antarctica, made it warmer, and you're going to sensationalize the story by acting like you don't know why it was warmer? Acting like this activity of freakish temperature changes isn't recorded constantly in so many other places? that is completely not rare. But they present to the world like this is a big, huge story. Why do they do that? Why does everybody believe that? How come they don't have the discernment? I don't know. All I know is that I've been there and I can see through the lies.
The sensationalism, right? That it's used for propaganda purposes. And it's like, also now we have the equipment to be able to monitor when there's these small little fluxes because storms blow in and whatnot, and actually document this little change and not like leave all the actual facts and information out of it, just to be able to, oh, the one time that Antarctica made it on the news for people's memories this year was, oh, it was this record heat thing, when, well, actually every other day was freezing freaking cold and no different than any other time.
Right. And how come, you're right. So now you're exactly right. So now that's what they remember instead of Eric Hecker said there's directed energy weapon systems at the South Pole Station because he was there. How come people don't hear that, but they hear Linda Moulton Howe heard from a guy who said he's a Navy SEAL and she said we should trust her. So,
but dude, it was 2 degrees
so it's obviously a
there.
spaceship. It's a spaceship heating up
What's really important though is it's 2 degrees warmer that day, man. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's 2 degrees warmer. Here's like what people don't realize. So like South Pole Station, specifically, right? Ooh, those are nice. South Pole Station specifically, in the wintertime, right? It's pretty much the coldest place on Earth. So anytime there's a storm, it's coming from somewhere else, which means it's going to be warmer. So if you have a freak storm, you have a freak heat incident. It's not actually really that freaky. It's just cold weather.
Sorry, just gone through my Facebook photos of these.
No worries.
Columns. And as
I know, I got a picture or two of the light beams in Barrow somewhere, but I am not that organized. I'll have to look for them.
And this is from my cell phone camera like 8 years ago now. So it's like, they don't look that spectacular, but you can still see them. And you can see that there's gaps between the columns and the actual lights below, putting them off. And I've experienced them a few times over the years. Oops, sorry, going through Facebook. Like just the energy feels like it's being sucked up when you're in that. And then, like you were saying, sometimes also pressured down. And
well, I can definitely see how the light seems like it's getting sucked up for sure. But I feel like me personally, like when I'm in that environment,
like the energy, like when I was speaking and stuff, it's like it seemed like it, like you're saying, takes more energy to do it. Like it's just going somewhere, you know. Like,
in my brain, I guess I think of that as like in a way the pressure. I almost think of it like the atmosphere is getting denser, so it's harder for you to push through it in a way.
Rex, were you sharing there?
Like also in at the South Pole Station when the temperature dropped, when we passed from -70 into the -80s, there was this like things changed, right? So so everything's kind of normal until like -50. And that's when things start getting hairy fast once you cross -50. So we would always say like -60 is twice as bad as -50, -70 is twice as bad as -60. But then at -80, actually, things get really hard. The atmosphere is, in a way, I know it's thin to begin with, but in a way it's so cold that when you go to speak, the moisture associated with the movement of your sound condenses so fast as you're trying to speak that it kind of clogs up your airspace. So you have to push harder again. You have to kind of talk harder to get the gases out of the way of your sound, or that will mute you because you're putting out a lot of gas at -80. You are there's so much smoke coming out of your mouth at -80.
That's intense. Like I cannot imagine. I've done -40, -50 with wind chill, at a couple of the worst times of Alberta's winter prairie storms. But man, -80, like.
Yeah, this is -80 ambient. This is no wind chill. This is straight cold, real cold. You can appreciate it. Like you can appreciate there's levels of cold.
My bones are cold right now, and it's almost July.
Have you ever heard of the 300 Club? You want to talk about some weird South Pole? Okay, so the 300 Club at the South Pole Station is when the weather is going to get below, when it's going to hit -100. The weathermen will let everybody know to fire up the sauna, and we set the sauna to +200. And you go in the sauna with your boots and a towel, and you wait for them to announce that the temperature has hit -100 outside. So we actually set the sauna for +214. We were going for pi 3.14. So when the temperature hit -100, they call it on the radio. You run to the exterior door, you drop your towel, and you proceed to run outside in -100-degree weather in your birthday suit around the South Pole. And the amount of gases that you're off-gassing.
That's your excuse, man.
Right? But the amount of off-gassing that you do, because you have your sweaty butt from the whole sauna thing, and then you hit that 0% humidity, 0% humidity at -100. And you have you see streams shooting out of your pores.
You'd look like a comet, eh?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Straight up, you have a trail that I said, at the time was like, I'm a train. Yeah, it's an amazing, oppressive amount of gas that you're putting off. That was one of the things that always amazed me at the South Pole, was how much we were dehydrating just through our skin and everything, because it is actually, it's 0% humidity there. Antarctica is on average the highest and driest continent in the world, and it's up there for altitude and it's up there for dryness. The vast majority of it's pretty much 0% humidity. That's hard on the human body.
My girlfriend would not be happy there.
I don't think there's very few girls that are happy at the South Pole Station. Most gals that I know don't like the cold.
No doubt. Oh man, like that. Good on you for being down there for a year. Like that's literally the harshest conditions you can find on Earth.
I would have to agree with that. If there's harsher out there, I will try working them. Send me a contract. I'll try it.
Like, what if you got a sore back? I can only imagine what that would do to somebody that had like a couple of herniated discs or something.
Well, to be honest with you, Rex, the first answer to that would be expose it to the cold, which was a very common practice for any injury that we had on task. If you were doing anything and all of a sudden you smashed your hand, you hit your head, you tweaked your back, expose it to the cold really quick. Peel your glove off, take your hat off. Watch that throbbing go away really fast. It works.
Yeah, you're right. Like put an ice pack onto something to get rid of the swelling, and
you got an ice pack everywhere you go. Just expose it to the cold. Watch how fast your problems go away. I'm not a doctor. I'm just telling you what we did.
This is not medical advice.
Yeah. This is only to be used in the wintertime at South Pole Station with discretion, and check with the on-site physician.
Could freeze to death in 30 seconds.
Yep.
Sorry, guys. I just I got to take a call from the girlfriend quick and run to the bathroom. Are you good to talk for 5 or 10 minutes, or should I play a clip going into part 2?
I can handle it.
Okay.
I can handle it.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Nice.
So how do you feel about like what you're doing now? Everything's got to be easy.
Oh, work-wise? Yes, absolutely. It's a whole horse of a different color. I mean, I'm completely up for the challenges and the hard work and the remote environments. I love that stuff. It's great, makes you feel good. But there's a lot to be said for the simpler days as well. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I just turned 47 recently, so for all practical purposes, a lot of the work that I've done has just been getting harder and harder and harder most of my life. So, sometimes it's nice to just stop and smell the roses. I really enjoy what I'm doing with the disclosure stuff. I have an excellent job here in Anchorage. I love working with folks like you, Rex, and I really feel there's a lot of confusion in the world, and I really want to do what I can to help get rid of that, because I have experiences that can't be denied, but people can try to slow my roll for sure. In my experiences, when it comes to, organization and factions that are trying to promote disorganization, it seems like every time somebody tries to rise up and be a voice or start a movement, that there's always the issue with moles, provocateurs, and dissipators. I don't believe in the form that folks like you and I run in that we have to deal with moles and provocateurs so much. But the last category, dissipators, that's a really easy weapon to be wielded. And that's what I am trying to figure out how to get through the violent seas of right now, because I'm not experienced at this part of disclosure. I'm only experienced in my life experience, but now that I'm trying to disclose, I am amazed at the amount of folks that seem to be on some sort of mission to slow down disclosure. Almost every corner that I turn, every door that I open, it seems like these folks are disingenuous. Oh, I'm a researcher on this, and I'm trying for disclosure on that. Oh, cool. Let me talk to you about, well. Interesting. Very interesting. How many doors get slammed in my face, and how many conversations are with folks that aren't actually really interested or versed in the topic in the slightest, but they have access to sensational claims.
Well, here's the thing, man. I'll tell you, some of the real legit people that I've talked to just recently that I can think of off the top of my head that have shared their testimonies, and I absolutely believe them, and they've shown me physical evidence. I've got a friend that is Hopi Elder, and he's one of the last of his tribe. And when he was a kid, he remembers getting abducted, and his friend did too. And his friend disappeared for 60 years.
Whoa.
And when he saw his friend again, he said, "Where'd you go?" And his friend said, "I don't know." And it was really weird. You got to listen to this testimony because he does it much better than I do. I'm just repeating.
Fair enough.
But here's where it gets even more juicy. Here's where the physical evidence is. He has an implant in his hand, no incision marks whatsoever. Magnets stick to it. Ooh. He showed me the x-rays. He showed me his hand. He showed me the magnets stick to his hand. You know, he's legit. So I just interviewed a gentleman called Randall Nickerson that spent $1 million in 14 years putting together a documentary about the event in Zimbabwe where there were 62 students that saw ETs or us from the future. But he thinks that they're most likely ETs. And they were showing pictures in their minds of what was going to happen in the future to the earth and what's happening to the earth, right? And I thought to myself, that's great and all, but man, if you really want to make a difference, why don't you go land on the CEO's yard, front yard that owns one of these big megacorps that's completely pillaging the earth's resources and getting away with dumping forever chemicals into the water and paying people off and stuff like that. Why don't you land on their front yard and say, look what you're doing? Maybe they wouldn't care. Maybe they have no morals, so it would be just
right. It's so hard for us to wrap our head around what could be going on, right? Because all possibility exists always, right? First and foremost, so we have to be really open-minded. So in regards to this specific event, I mean, for all we know, this spaceship could have been having a mechanical breakdown, right? They could have had no intention of being here whatsoever for all we know, right? But lo and behold, here they are. And next thing you know, there's a pack of kids. Well, they didn't kill them, so apparently they're not bad aliens, right? So right off the bat, we know they didn't kill these kids, so they can't be that bad. But maybe in the process, they're just like, hey, here we are fixing our flat tire on our UFO, and you kids walked up, and in the process, we're going to hook you up with a little bit of what we got going on and what we can do. Maybe it's just that simple. You know, like meeting strangers passing on the side of the road. Like it's you do what you can for each other at that moment.
And while they're changing the flat tire, they're going to go ahead and send images into these kids' heads, showing them how the Earth is being destroyed. We got
why not?
There.
Yeah, why not? Like from their perspective, like we might see that as a big deal, but from their perspective, it might just be like a simple, like, oh, I'm gonna, help you guys out. You want a show? You like looking at shows? We'll give you a show.
We come in peace. We come in peace.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I mean, BBC picked it up. Harvard, a Harvard professor. There was a ton of stuff on it.
I'm familiar with the story. I'm not versed on it, but I've heard of this, and it's my understanding that this is one of the legit occurrences.
With that said, let's think about the possibilities of we're getting visited by non-human beings, and the South Pole. Would that be like one of the best places for them to go? Because there's just, how are you going to be able to, you're not going to be able to see them out there.
I think that, and this is where I'm speculating, I think there's something to this. I think there's something going on at the South Pole Station. I think from the stuff that I've learned about gravity and how things work, that whether, even if it is or isn't, even if it just turns out that at some point in time that they believe that to be the case. The government does that a lot. They don't necessarily know stuff, but they believe enough on something that they'll invest in that direction. And the next thing you know, they're invested in that direction, so they maintain it. So I believe at some point in time, somebody believed there was value to observing our southern pole for intergalactic on and off planet activities. I am also a believer that there could be something going on inside our planet, and that one of the access points may be at the pole or close to it, or from the continent of Antarctica, which is freakishly huge. So I know a lot of people like, there's a hole right at the South Pole. No, there's not. I was there. Sorry, folks. I don't care about other people's stories on the topic. Unless they can show you pictures of their story, I'm calling them liars. I was there, they weren't. It's that simple.
Not necessarily liars.
Holy cow.
They're misled, right? Because they have
No. The whistleblowers, the actual whistleblowers. There are people.
Oh, okay.
There's the people that the researchers are putting up, right?
Yeah.
Yes. The researcher might be getting misled, but the other person's a liar.
Fair enough. And yes, and sorry, I wanted to jump in there about the spaceport at Antarctica, because that would make perfect sense, both from the official NASA studies there of there being the lower gravity, the lower flux, the potential portal and vortex, as well as the Russians. The Soviets claimed the same. They released a couple of UFO documentaries actually on their public network, I think about 10 years ago. It also was disclosing Admiral Byrd's trip down there, but they're essentially saying the same thing, that it's a portal for possible technologies. Nassim Haramein seems to think the same. And just from your own experience down there, something seemed off, and there's no practical reason why they would be sending people like John Kerry or Buzz Aldrin down there just for logistics reasons for what's actually down there of value. There's supposedly nothing, but there has to be something.
Yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, right, these are representatives, right? So if this representative is going to go have a meeting with some other representative, you can schedule that meeting literally anywhere on the planet. Obviously, because they're going to schedule it at the South Pole. So apparently you can schedule it anywhere on the planet. What is the practical point?
Yeah.
I see, as someone who's been there, I
where
see
nobody else
zero.
can see it apparently, right? So they're clearly hiding something down there.
Right. Yeah, in a way, they can't even, like, that's funny too. Yeah, because in a way, they can't even stop the world from noticing you went there. But yet they can't even really discuss a real reason.
And
you know, so it is it's so shady.
The Russian Orthodox high priest also went down there around the same time as John Kerry, I believe. It was either before
I think you're right.
or after. So so it's like, why are these different world powers, highest level diplomats being put down there unless there is an actual off-world or high value negotiations happening there?
Which I think is really interesting, because prior to the American involvement in Alaska, it was mostly Russian Orthodox and all over Alaska. And Alaska has a rich history of hidden pyramids and aliens and blah, blah, blah. So it's funny.
Right? Just these reoccurring things that keep happening over and over. It's how many times does it have to happen before it's not a coincidence or a conspiracy? And thank you for bringing back the pyramid aspect, because that's kind of what I wanted to go into for part 2. Is all of the pyramids everywhere. And then, so the pyramid that you saw and took a picture of down there, was it from when you're stationed on the South Pole, or when you traveled through transit through McMurdo, or like how many are you aware of down from?
Let me give great specificity on this. The photograph is my roommate's photograph. She's also from the program. She was gifted this photograph from someone in the program as well. This is a gigantic panoramic photograph of very high quality of many mountain ranges of Antarctica in one shot. This thing is like 16 feet long. It's freakishly huge photograph. So people have to understand the intent of this photograph is not to show any one thing in detail. It's meant to show a massive landscape. So when I present it to people in reality, they can see the scale, the scope, and all of that stuff. But it depicts all of the mountains. So this is a program photo. So it's like stuff that's used in the program. It shows that this mountain this mountain that. And then in the midst of everything, it says pyramid. And you see the pyramid. It indicates the pyramid, just like it's indicating all of the other mountain ranges. And it's from the program. So this is what I'm trying to present to folks, is that there is facts, there is reality that can be had in these conversations. But just because it's not the information that people are being spoon-fed or supporting the spoon-feeding, it's, I guess, cognitive dissonance in some level. Everybody says, if this stuff was going on, if somebody would say something. I hear that a lot. I'm actually saying something and finding it really interesting.
There's people saying things. It's just what people are willing to listen to, and that they refuse to hear the other side and prefer to keep to their own biases a lot of the time these days. But pictures speak louder than words. Right here we have, this is the Fairham Foundation. I'm on their website. We'll go into it more in depth in the second half, but just right here, there's the one famous picture he's got of one of the pyramids in Antarctica there. I think, so I'm not sure where the source of that one is from, but it's pretty good indication of such.
It looks pretty triangular.
And I've noticed several actually in the easternmost parts of the Alberta Rockies, where I live myself, some mountaintops that are starting to look pyramidal, but even more so in there's Drumheller, Alberta, world famous for the Royal Tyrrell Museum of Dinosaurs that have been dug out throughout the Badlands of the area. And my friend lives out in Drumheller. I'm out there a decent amount, and I started noticing that they have all of these mounds that look identical to pyramids in the center and throughout the Badlands of Drumheller. And now the next time I went out, I noticed that I started looking into them. Some of them actually have the flat tops. They all look like they're pretty much in the same alignment. So I'm going to be going out a third time this summer with the drone, as well as some surveying equipment, see if I can verify that if they're aligned to the cardinal points or not, or at the very least, if they're all in the exact same alignment to whatever alignment they end up being. But the second time I was out, what gives me the most hope of these actually, which pretty much confirmed to me that they are real pyramids, is that, and more like the second picture here now I have next to Japan Yanaguni in between the Bosnian pyramid, the USA one, these earthen mounds that are made out of the different levels of sands. And that I studied this in post-secondary. I took both archaeology, anthropology, geology, and geography. And that the earth mounds, or because they refuse to call them pyramids in the southern US, but they're pyramids, but what they're made out of is several repeating layers of types of sand and dirt and ash that are about a foot deep and in parallel, alternating in these layers. And that in geology, you learn that there's only really the KT boundary in the the substrate of natural rock or settlements, depending where you are, whether it's raised up or whether it's buried way down below. But the KT boundary of when the asteroid hit, wiped out the dinosaurs or whatever, and there's this about 3-inch layer of ash soot way down from this layer when the world burnt. And then apparently now there's also one they find in lots of areas in South America from during the Younger Dryas. It's only about 1 inch deep, and apparently asteroids hit, burnt some, melted the ice caps, as well as burnt lots of forests. And there's the second layer, only about 1 inch thick. In these mounds I've found, they're charcoal that is exactly 12 inches, exactly 1 foot thick, and it alternates with 2 other layers, one pink, one red sand, also identical 12 inches each, and then they rotate these layers down in these mounds. So it's almost guaranteed that they're in fact man-made pyramids in Drumheller, Alberta, and not these natural through supposed oh wow, can't even think of the word, erosion, turned into specific pyramids eaten out by water and wind. And that it's these structured, built, repeating layers that prove that it's not natural formations, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. So
part of me thinks of this stuff like in a way, like I almost think of like a like a master builder race or something like that, right? Or, you know, all this great knowledge that is, you know, it is built into these structures. So there's no denying it, right? There's information to be gleaned from this amazing engineering that's beyond us. But
absolutely,
I, in a way, wonder if it might not be something so simple as like gardening. You know, people have a garden, they make their garden pretty, and people have different skills, and your garden comes out nicer or lesser depending on your skill set. And of course, you know, we have like cool symbols and things that are endearing to us when we decorate things. So we all do that. Like, you know, like you have a decoration on your shirt right now. It's a pattern that you like, you know. So if you were to build a building, that we might find that pattern's in there. Does that mean that this is a temple now, just because there's some holy image there? Or were you just gardening and you decorated an area in your yard?
And so some of the research I'm into and the experiments, scientific experiments that we're coming up with to test it, is connecting things like these sacred geometric symbols that are actually also these a two-dimensional representation of these three-dimensional energy structures and forms of both the structures of nature, as well as how energy travels between dimensions and such and so forth, and shapes, that it seems that there is this lost ancient civilization. And I'm not one that looks at it whether it was extraterrestrial humanity, some other form of earth-based life that lived before. It's that there were these catastrophes that wiped things out. Most likely this Atlantis and Lemuria in ages of past, as Plato states, 12,000 years. Plato told the story 3,000 years ago from present day, and at his time saying it was 9,000 years before his time, so 12,000 years exactly. We now know that during the Younger Dryas, 12,000 to 11,800 years ago, the ice caps melt, ending that current ice age. And where before we thought they melted in a couple hundred years, we now know they melted in a matter of no more than 4 years. So the oceans rose by 400 feet in less than 2 to 4 years. Currently, human population, 85% lives along the coastline. I could not imagine what would happen now if something like that were to happen. But basically, it seems like there's now consistent evidence that there was this sort of mass catastrophe reset, whether written in like through Noah's floods, now in Turkey, Göbekli Tepe, that was covered up around that same time, all sorts of these new finds, but that there was some advanced global civilization beforehand. It got wiped out, and it's left these massive ruins like the Nazca's lines, the geoglyphs, and they used these pyramid structures. And it's was it just decorative and figurative, or did it actually have technological purpose in its geometry? And that my thesis and the research we're doing, and now the tests that we're going to be putting forth and trying to harness and study and prove or deny whether it was more or just decorative, is for instance, starting with the pyramid and the shape of the pyramid. And Sam Ivanovic, I believe, he's from Bosnia-Herzegovina, does the Bosnian pyramids. Him and Dan Winter did a very good presentation about 2 weeks ago, showing the science of how the pyramids transfer energy, use energy, or harness energy. And then other Russian studies I've seen and have been tested are showing that for agricultural purposes, that the crops are grown more bountiful within the areas, do better. And then if you store the crop in it afterwards, it lasts longer. So all these sorts of things.
Oh yeah, I think there's real tangible value to some of these structures, that there's practical things going on with them. I think what I'm trying to suggest is that the artistry on them may have less to do with the practical function. That it could just be simply like, hey, I built a time machine, but I get to paint it whatever color I want. So yes, it's a time machine, but if you paint it all cool, wacky colors, which could just be hieroglyphs, the hieroglyphs might not have anything to do with what the thing is.
Yes. See, and also it's that this is whatever the grand technology is, it's that it was long lost, and since, and any of these more recent inhabitants that have gone back and rebuilt some of them, that they have no understanding of what the actual purposes were, or the technologies and stuff like that.
Right. We have cars driving around on the roads, right? And they're covered with bumper stickers. Does that explain what the car is for?
Right. Exactly.
You know, so like we're all looking at these things. We're all looking at the bumper stickers on it, I think, and trying to figure out what it does. And we're knuckleheads. We have no context for the things in our past. Certainly not from what we were taught in school.
Yeah, that is a very good point. The
You know,
context. So I'm
no,
glad you brought that up too. So before World War I, history, even in academia, was taught that Atlantis was our history, that it was a catastrophe, and that there was a society much greater and technologically advanced than the one of that time. And that as soon as we've gone into this new reset mentality, YOLO, we're the best ever, you completely lose that context and understanding of all the previous archaeology, humanities, civilizations, and the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to hear it, but we're the lamest time period ever. We're the most inefficient. We're the
most material and
we're the most non-understanding of the resources around us. I mean, yeah, this is like the fall of man 101. We're at like rock bottom. We're knuckleheads. We don't understand the context of anything from our past, and yet we try to like pontificate as if we're so educated through science. You know, you can't argue with science. What? You know, it's just that, how do I put it? The confusion, it's like, it would be like all of creation, right? Just imagine all of creation.
Sovereignty to science, yet science is now corrupted, false, and misleading in the highest of corrupt institutions.
I speak oftentimes, like, you know, people get biblical and things like that, and they talk about creation and what God is because this says that, right? And that's crazy to me because I think of it like, think of like when the Cathedral of Notre Dame was built, right? How out of the world that structure was for people that were like, you know, living in the woods, and there's still folks foraging and stuff back when that was built. But then to see the grandeur.
There's still tribes doing the same today.
Right. So imagine people to walk out of the woods and see something like that going on, okay? They would be so profoundly different to them in their creation. But now imagine if you've never even seen anything like that before. You've just lived in the woods. You've never seen anything like that before. But I go over to the cathedral and I chip off a little corner of stone and I bring it over to you. And that's the only perspective that I give you on that creation, okay? And then I turn to you and I start asking you to define the creator, the architect of the structure. How accurate can that person be? It's not really possible for them to have any semblance of accuracy. So I would often tell folks that in the grand scheme of our creation, from your limited perspective, it's pretty much impossible for you to have any accuracy as to what's going on around us.
Yep.
But yeah, people love to pontificate and preach like they know this is this and this is that, and it's got it. Really? Really? How's that piece of sand you're holding look? But people just don't seem to get it. If we can broaden our perspectives and realize that it's not just everything that we're being shown, which is the piece of sand, because they're not letting us see outside the margins. There is greater creation. There is more to the conversation, and folks need to have the blinders removed, because it's, in a way, it's like we've been pulled from the forest and being forced to just look at the piece of sand when we have the ability to look at the cathedral, to make it to that understanding. I almost think of it like in the movie, in the book 2001 Space Odyssey, there's like that moment where the Neanderthal men come across the monument, the obelisk, and they have this epiphany just from witnessing something, from being privy to exposure to knowledge. And I feel like contemporarily, this is where we're stuck, is that the powers that be are very adept at putting blinders upon us and making us focus in directions that we don't want. But now I'm monologuing to a wall of paintings, and I wish we had a live line that we can get to. Oh,
Sorry.
whoa, shirt change. Look at that. It's all good. I just ran out of stuff at the last second.
Fair enough.
It's getting colder in Canada. You had to throw a shirt on?
It is today. It's a little rainy.
Uh-huh.
Little rainy. It's I think it's only like 7 degrees Celsius out right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right. And it's like still it's only 5 hours of darkness. So kind of strange. It's our rainy season though. It'll be like 30 degrees tomorrow though.
Nice.
How's Alaska?
Oh my God, it's been ruthlessly hot lately. I've been praying for winter.
Really? Hey?
Yeah. Well, ruthlessly hot according to my standards. It probably was in the low 70s. I don't know. I've been working out in direct sunlight and complaining.
Yeah, well, I'm just so much sun at this time of year, no matter what you do. Can't hide.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before you were talking about the history of like the former Russian history settler area of Alaska and inhabitation. And part of the research we do online is into this Tartarian Empire and Tartarian history. And the further you look back on maps, the more territory was called Tartaria. And at one point it occupied all of Alaska, and it seems like it actually at one point was also all of North America and South America. But the end of it was the Eastern Eurasian part. And that a lot of the map on the ancient maps, there's all these cities of like castles throughout northeastern Eurasia in this Tartaria region, where now it just looks like bomb craters and no inhabitation. But cathedrals are a big part of their architecture, as well as these brick buildings. And do you see a lot of that sort of architecture, like the older stuff in Alaska still? And is there still Russian population at all, or is it just completely removed?
There is not a lot of structure in Alaska at all. Just simply, there's not a lot of structure. There's not a lot of old structure. Probably the oldest structures that I saw, which were probably Russian Orthodox, some churches and things, were over in the Dutch Harbor area. It's probably some of the oldest and more religious structures that I saw, and they just looked wooden.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah, and it's, so I don't know, have you looked into the Tartaria much, or?
Not much, but I find it very interesting, and I guess I would say what I do know of it, I guess, supports my belief that there was something going on for longer on this planet. I agree. I don't know the answer on humans, aliens, whatever the hell you want to call it. I don't know. But as a tradesman, I know structures and I know labor. And I know that it takes a certain amount of man hours, motivated man hours, to do hard work. And you can't whip someone into being a craftsman.
Right? Oh, I know.
That's the biggest lie that people seem to, oh, back in the day, there were all these slaves building these things. No, they weren't.
Right? It's like,
no, they weren't.
A slave who you beat, you break their hands if they don't work. Well, someone with a broken hand is never going to be able to craft these masters. Like, oh,
right.
These
stories are shenanigans.
These
structures were built by people that wanted to do it. And it's inherent in everything about the construction. It's obvious that there was caring involved in this and skill. Yeah, that's not something you beat people into.
So, my main science and experiments discovery has been in alchemy, electrolysis, cold fusion, and through rediscovering Isaac Newton's alchemy works and when they are translated, and then my own electrolysis experiments, recreating a lot of his transmutational states and stuff, and creating these monoatomic elements and metals and stuff. But it's that I've now started reading a lot of these ancient alchemist writings from like the 1600s and around that sort of time period, and you get a completely different picture and understanding of what they were taught, what they knew, and what they believed, and what was actually going on. And one major part of this electrolysis called fusion stuff and the monoatomics, it ties directly into the geopolymers and these, how the megaliths and these other buildings and whatnot, how they're actually made, and that it's a completely different technology than what we currently believe through geology and all of this and whatnot. And it's fascinating as heck.
I have spoken to some fairly intelligent folks, and the suggestion has been put on the table that in antiquity, folks were able to wield energy in a way that you could liquefy rock in a way to make it like a moldable concrete, and then like turn the power off, and then it's like, I don't know the term, so to say, but it's I guess polymerizing the rock for a period, and then like under energy you can put intention into it and make it the shape that you want, and then turn the energy field off, and voila. And then again, like almost in a way, like I was saying, going back to like, hey, you have a garden and your garden's nicer than my garden, you know, and it's just a matter of our skill set. That's all. So I think some of these things, we're just seeing the skill set of the artist that built the thing that was better than another. And in a way, it was still keeping up with the Joneses thing, just on a greater scale. Look what I can do. Look what you can do. Oh, my structure's cooler than your structure. They're all still similar. You know, you see people build an English garden. It still has similar structure that makes it English garden. But some people's are fancier than others.
Just looking at Rex's question. I'm down for about another hour.
I have to probably bail out.
No worries. I'll be covering and playing a little bit of some other stuff pre-recorded.
Oh, you got it.
But yeah, no, like the geopolymer stuff, and like also I've been going back looking at even Da Vinci's designs, and because I'm coming from a bit of a background in physics, now electrical engineering stuff, focusing on with some partner channels, whatnot. And that then I see 3 different blueprints of these, what I've found now of videos of other people making on YouTube of these over gravity wheels. And so like perpetual motion machines, and they're the identical drawings to Da Vinci's. And then also I started looking at the cathedrals, and these cathedral layouts, they're built like these electric generators, these giant DC electric generators. And then the domes with the different metals, how they're made, it looks like they were actually harnessing electricity or some sort of energy out of the atmosphere and utilizing it, and were quite possibly electrified for.
I think there's a lot to be said for other known phenomena. I don't even know how to put it. I don't want to say electricity or magnetism. There's other phenomena that's available. All different kinds. There's a multitude of other phenomena. Tesla taught us that you can take magnets and copper, which is just basically materials. You can take materials from this planet and you can arrange them in what ancients would call sacred geometrical patterns, and you can rotate them and you get a phenomena. Okay? Well, folks, that ain't the end of the world. Those aren't the only materials that you can assemble. That's not the only shape that you can put them in. And guess what? When you rotate them, you'll get a phenomenon. How many phenomena can we get? Well, let's start having discussions about those things. Let's start discussing the energy of things, like Tesla said. because we'll learn more than focusing on the material. But there's a lot to be said for, you know, that it's the energy. Everything's about the energy. That's the disclosure. That's what we're being hidden from. That's all the science that they say you can't argue this, can't argue, blah, blah, blah. Everything's about energy. It's about understanding energy. It's about understanding all the multitude of other phenomena that are out there that are being withheld from us. This is not a simple conversation. Everybody wants like a simple answer, like, oh, we've been lied to up until this day by which person and what lie? Like it's some singular thing. Like they have no idea that the multitude of lies, the depths of things,
the matrix of it all.
Yeah, we're so lied to and so off the mark from reality. It's people gonna be jumping off roof buildings. It's like it's gonna be a horror show. Nobody wants to hear it, but that's what true disclosure is gonna be, is when everyone flips out. That's what's going on. No one's flipping out yet. That's why we don't have disclosure. That's when we know disclosure occurred.
We got that we got that COVID thing or something like that, man. I mean, if you're scared of COVID, wait till you see what happens when aliens land. Then you'll be real scared.
Dude,
I'm worried about donkey pox next.
Holy cow. Yes. And now monkeypox and freaking whatever.
Moneypox.
Donkey
Moneypox is probably what it is. Just get that money up, because people don't want to get pay for the thing anymore. So
yeah.
You don't want an mRNA modifier, bro, that might or might not work? Come on. What could possibly
increase your chances of getting sick by times 10?
No. I will tell you.
Who could have ever seen that they're going to offer 27 booster shots?
Hey, 27 boosters, you're in great shape, buddy.
But the cool thing is 28 boosters free.
Oh, buy 27, you get the 28 for free, man. That's with extra thimerosal. So I've talked to people that got COVID after they got boosted, and they got over it in a couple of weeks, and they're doing well. So I'm happy, because like we're talking family members and stuff, right? And then I know people that got it and didn't get the mRNA modifier, and they got over it. So it's more like it's like an intense flu kind of. You know, you got like body aches, freaking, you're really tired, and you just freaking boomer boost it up, man. I've been like taking extra boomer boost and gladiator barley, and maybe I should go take some more C60 too, man. But
I don't believe that there's a single illness that I've ever seen discussed in the mainstream media that can't be pretty much addressed by proper nutrition.
Well said, man. Well said. Nutrition's key, right? Like that's very important. Yet people seem to be.
Yeah, step one to good health is proper nutrition, and I challenge any doctor to argue with me on that one. I know I'm just a plumber, but I'm gonna stand up and say that any doctor that disagrees with me isn't a very good doctor. Nutrition is step one to proper health.
And get your quadruple boost.
Yeah.
Boost for health.
Boosting it, right? Like I drink my monoatomic water or colloidal silver gold water. It seems to help me. It's, the structured waters other people do. It's about keeping your body healthy, in tune, and your immune.
We're all individuals, and everybody should be so individually in tune with their own diet. They should be able to tell you this agrees with me and this doesn't. This makes me feel good. This makes me feel energized. But instead they go, oh, McDonald's has buy one, get 4 Big Macs for free.
Dude. It's like $14 for a freaking combo meal of who knows what's in it.
Right? I was like, I wish I had that deal.
How long? Last time I ate there, I had a 3-day hangover. Literally, a food hangover for 3 days. I just didn't feel right.
Yeah, but you know yourself well enough to know that when you eat that, you can feel the difference.
Like that, absolutely. For 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
We had
what were those guys back in the day? They spoke of terrain theory when it came to the body. I can't think of the guy's name now, but they were discussing this idea of maintaining your body, like the garden, that the harmony, that if you're doing everything correctly and you're eating well enough, once you've set everything up, if I remember correctly, the dude ingested, to prove his point, he ingested some crazy disease mixed in water, and he didn't get sick.
Well, okay, we're gonna finish this up because I know Eric, it's I'll
Yeah,
tell
I
you,
gotta go
man, you are super busy. Bernie, you're super busy. I've been crazy busy. I'm about ready to actually, I think I'm gonna get some sleep here pretty soon.
There you go.
Yeah, dude, I'll tell you.
Essential,
That
right? You
move
gotta stay
yesterday,
balanced.
10 hours, and then now I've still
Damn.
got a few more hours to move.
Yeah.
So hey, anybody out there at the trailer, maybe you could help me out Monday.
If there wasn't
Anyway, so
1,000K between us,
just
like we're
actually,
right on the Rockies together, but just a border at 1,000Ks, I'd be right
Bernie,
there.
get out here. Eric, you guys help me move.
There you go.
Yeah,
All
Eric,
right,
get
guys,
down to
well-
Calgary, and then I'll take you the rest of the way.
Guys, thank
I'll
you.
pay for your
Thank you
flights.
very
Come
much.
out and help me move.
Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation. I look forward to doing it again. Rex, have a blast in the new place, and I look forward to helping out. Anything that I can do, I'll try to help out as much as I can with everything that you're doing in the new direction that you're going. I know it's hard to push and gain ground in disclosure, so I want to just I want to help. I think this is where the front lines are at, as best I can tell. So I'm going to step up to the front lines and try to help push forwards.
Man, I appreciate it, Eric, because you are a big part of disclosure, and to have you a part of this is amazing and really appreciated. We need you, and Bernie, we need you too, man. You are so valuable to this. Really appreciate you. And in finishing up, you need to let everybody know where to find you on YouTube, and let's wrap this up with a positive note.
Oh, thank you so much.
BurnEye, mine's Third Eye, ScienceGuy is my new third channel, and I'm so lucky that I labeled all of my podcasts Weekend at BurnEye's before my channels got deleted. So now they're still up on your channels, on Autodidactic, on Alien Scientist, and the rest of them, that I have millions of views of videos still up on YouTube, despite them recently taking down my second channel in a row now without warning and without contacting me or anything like that. But my third one is BurnEye, mine's Third Eye, ScienceGuy, BURNEYE. And in the playlist section, I've already attached and put up, there's, I think, 8 links to videos on Leak Project's YouTube that I've done so far with Rex, a good 20 on the Alien Scientist, plus another 20 APEC of the Alternative Propulsion Engineering Conference. Also, I will be partaking in that tomorrow on the Alien Scientist stream all day APEC conference. I will be back here next Friday as well for another weekend at BurnEye's, as it's always an awesome time. And I think you, me, and Campbell also have a booking on the Thursday, the 30th, possibly. Rex, I will talk to Kristen just to confirm, but I think that's the case too.
Bitchin', dude. Absolutely. I'll make sure to subscribe to your new YouTube channel, and I'll ask everybody that's in here right now to subscribe to your new YouTube channel and also hit the bell for notifications. And Eric, your YouTube channel.
My YouTube channel is Deciphering My Experience, and I'm just about to turn 3,000 subs there. So I'd really appreciate if people can go there and help me push past, because that's how these algorithms work. Basically, they only respect the numbers. So I don't really care about the numbers, but I need the numbers in order to get the truth out there. This is how the disclosure machine grows. So please sub over at Deciphering My Experience. And more importantly, because as everybody knows the sting of censorship, I have my own website, which is deciphering.tv. It is a young fledgling site, but they can't stop it. That's what they don't like, is I'm actually way ahead of the curve. I've got an archive section where I put the facts out there that people don't want me sharing. So it's up to you folks to go there, go to deciphering.tv, go to the archives, check out the documents, look at the videos of the folks that I'm speaking with about Rex and Leak Project and disclosure. This is where the truth is at, and they can't stop us if you share it.
Sharing is caring.
All right.
Right? So Was funny. My new channel, last night I went to sleep. I had 19 subscribers. I woke up today to 13 subscribers. It's ridiculous. Every time I get past 2,000 on a channel, they instantly delete me, but you can't get rid of me. And next week we'll be back.
There you go. Well, maybe you can throw some stuff. I could figure out a way to get you on deciphering.tv to back you up as well.
Absolutely.
The more the merrier.
Eric. Absolutely.
Yep.
I'll email
We'll
you.
chat. The many hands makes light work, gentlemen.
Nice. Hello.
Enjoy.
All right, everybody. Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a great night.
Respect.
You too. Be
Bye.
a change.